Well, should we go into Spearow?
Yeah, let's talk about Spearow.
Right.
So,
So I'm gonna ask you the question because I know what my answer is gonna be. Do you have any kind of memories of Spearow?
well, yeah, like Spearow is like, like we said in the picture reveal, Spearow is like the original antagonist. Like Ash pissed off a Spearow in episode one, not episode one, but soon. And like without that altercation with the Spearow, without Ash trying to protect Pikachu from the Spearow, even though Pikachu was being a little asshole, um, then like they never would have established the bond that has carried them
Mm,
through a million seasons of Pokemon. Like they without Spearow, just that wouldn't have happened. Without Spearow's
mm,
rage and desire for vengeance. And I feel like even though there isn't like a main series like character with Spearow as a partner Pokemon that you see a lot of, I think that plot does give Spearow a lot of character and a lot of
mm,
personality. You get an idea from the story of like the territorial nature of Spearow and the aggression and just how I like that how that has been established. I think that's really effective and I think it does
mm.
make Spearow memorable.
Yeah.
Um and I think it gives Spearow like a bit of an edge. Like we discussed this a bit in the Pidgey episodes. Like Pidgey is like the cute, friendly one that Ash has on his team. And so like people lean towards Pidgey because it was such a Pidgeotto and Pidgeot were such a big part of the anime um on the protagonist team.
Mm,
But like I think Spearow's got like a bit of an edge to it. It's the angry one. It's like the
mm,
foil. It's the heel
yeah.
of the early flying types. And I'm into it. I like it. I can appreciate it.
Well, I suppose I should have reworded that question. Have you ever used the Spearow on your team?
I don't know. I think I recently decided I was going to replay Let's Go Eevee, and I wanted to have some Pokemon I didn't use much when I was younger because it's just easier to get a Pidgey because they're more common. And then once you have it, like Pidgeot is more powerful in the end than Fearow, even though Pidgey evolves like level 20,
Mm,
something like that, quite young. So you have to get a Pidgey through Pidgeotto and up to like level 34, 36 to get a Pidgeot. Um, but you can have your Fearow at level 20. So it's a quicker escalation to its most powerful form. But I think like you also have to like put a lot of thought into how you're going to
mm,
use that Fearow, what you're going to do with it, like what moves you want it to have that's going to make it a better option than Pidgeot.
mm.
So I did say recently I was going to replay Let's Go Eevee with a Fearow and see how it fit on my team. And then I don't think I got very far through the game before I got distracted and did something else.
Mm.
Uh, and also, like, I think the Let's Go games is not the game I want to use it on. Because like you can't, like, it takes away the battle function against wild Pokemon, which is where I wanted to like play with it.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm fairly certain I've never ever had a Spearow on the team. Um, like I remember coming across it when I was younger, and I'm pretty sure I already had a Pidgey, and I'm pretty sure I came across it on Route One. Um,
Yeah.
like it may have potentially been Pokemon Yellow. Like I feel like that feels correct that it was on Pokemon Yellow, but
Yep.
but I came across it, and I was like, oh, what's the difference between these two? But I'd already started to kind of train up my Pidgey. My Pidgey must have been like maybe a level 7, and my Spearow
Yeah.
was like level 3, and I'm like, well, what's the point? What's the point of... So I just stuck it in the
Yeah.
box. And then part of the problem was that I came across a Spearow like later on, and then I
Mm.
just caught that Spearow, and then I had a Spearow and a Fearow. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh well, it doesn't evolve now. So then I just
Yeah.
stuck it in the box. I feel like it would very much benefit from having a third evolution. I don't
Yeah,
know
but
really why it hasn't got one.
I think because then it's too similar to Pidgey, the Pidgey line. I think
Ah,
it's they yeah, I don't know. Johnny made a good point in the chat here. They said, I found Spearow useful early game, especially in Gen 1 when Gust wasn't a flying type attack, but Peck was. And I think that is a very good point. Um, even though like Goldeen learns peck and Nidoran learns peck because they have like beaks and horns that they can use to peck things, and like yeah, peck definitely doesn't need to be a flying type move because like anything can peck really, if they have an appropriate appendage. um it probably should have been the
mm,
other way around, especially because like Gust was Pidgey's signature move.
mm,
But like I think Spearow like didn't have a great move pool. Like apart from Peck, which is obviously good, it then gets Growl and Leer. And if you play Pokemon like me, you don't like those moves that don't do damage.
yeah.
And also, um if you're going to use moves that don't do damage, that
Mm,
have like a different impact on the game, Growl and Leer are not the ones. They're the ones that every fucking baby Pokemon knows. Like you want to use ones that are a bit more fun strategically. And
mm,
then it doesn't actually learn a fourth move until level 15, where it learns Fury Attack. So you've essentially got one attacking move up until level 15, whereas Pidgey definitely has a better move pool at that age. And this is like what I mean, when it comes to using Spearow and Fearow thoughtfully, you have to know what you want to do with it and like what moves it's going to have. And you need to go out of your way to teach it those moves. Like you can't just like get a decent move pool by leveling it up the way you can with a lot of other Pokemon. Um, even the ones that you catch early game, like Johnny's saying about it using Peck as a flying type move, but then you can catch Nidoran in basically the same place you can catch um Spearow, and you've got Peck the flying type move, but you've also got like a poison type Pokemon right there, which is um something that's gonna make your team a bit more different than having like if you've got a Pidgey, which has a better move pool,
mm,
and a Spearow just so it's got Peck. Nidoran's got Peck and it's also got Poison Sting. You know,
yeah.
you can do and double kick.
Yeah.
You can do more with it.
Well, we had another comment in the chat. I don't know if it's worth waiting until a little bit later, but when we do the Fearow one. But Sam said that Spearow is better than Pidgey, but Pidgeot is better than Fearow. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would agree with that. I don't know if everyone else heard that exactly in time due to like Zoom delay, but like that was so in sync.
uh,
um, yeah. So no, I would agree with that, and I think it's because of that middle evolution that
mm,
Pidgeot is better, and also I think it goes back to like tying it into the anime. Like Ash had a Pidgeotto and briefly a Pidgeot, and you know there are kids who are playing it who want the Ash storyline in a way,
yeah.
so they will do the same. Um, but yeah, I think Fearow is decent when you, which we'll talk about when we get to Fearow, I'm sure. Fearow is decent because it evolves a level 20.
Yeah.
So then when you are mainly battling people who have middle evolutions, your Fearow has that advantage being its final evolution.
Mm,
By the time you're battling people whose Pokemon are in their third evolution, your Fearow then loses
yeah.
its advantage, loses its edge a little bit. And it's like I tend to steer clear of Pokemon that only have two evolutions or
Mm,
single types,
yeah.
just because I feel like when you're making um uh a team that's designed to be able to like take on any challenge, you're just automatically opening yourselves up to weakness
Yeah.
by not doing that. And it means that there are a lot of like Pokemon that in theory I think are very cool that I just have never properly used. And Fearow is one of them.
Yeah, yeah. I had a similar thing where because I don't feel like I actively like avoid second stage evolution, but I must do it like subconsciously, because I remember when I did Sword and Shield and I had a Dreadnought, and when I found out that was only 2 stage, I was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't a third stage, and like it was already like a key part of the team at that point, but like I feel like if I'd carried on playing that game and got like the DLC and all that kind of stuff, that Dreadnought would have likely been the one that got cycled out due to the second stage evolution. And yeah, I feel like Fearow's the same. You know, you've got so many decent flying types, particularly towards the end, that it's like why wouldn't you swap your Fearow out for, say, a Moltres or a Zapdos?
Yeah, that once the legendary birds come into it, it does change the game a little bit.
Mm.
Um,
Like
so
like I used
um,
to so I used to do a thing where I would keep a Pokemon on my team for as long as I could, but if I actively felt like it was starting to kind of not be able to continue on, I was like losing more battles, or it was getting knocked out, or it was getting switched out more, I'd just get to the point where I'd be like, right, well, I can't conceivably keep you on
yeah,
here now, and you're going to get swapped
yeah.
out. Like, for the people who've been following the channel and doing the Violet run through, so I've got a Jigglypuff, and it's like I'm gonna evolve it soon. It's actually named after you, Kirstie. The chat decided, because it had a pink swirl at the front, and I will try and keep Kirstie the Jigglypuff on for as long as I can. But I do get the feeling that eventually they are gonna. I might have to find a new Kirstie. Um, but yeah, that happens. I don't know if you do that, where it's like eventually you just have to make this decision and go, it obviously cannot keep up, and I feel like I would have that with Fearow after a little while with Gen 1.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Johnny has said that they feel robbed with the stage 2 Pokemon you get in early game, because the ones you first encounter mid game at higher levels do make more sense. Um, and yeah, I'd agree with that. It's like Fearow is absolutely not the only Pokemon where that has this kind of like challenge for how much I'm actually going to use it. I think. Um, but it's the first one we've come across, and that's when we're having this discussion.
Yes. And Sam has also put that Moltres is just a spicy Fearow, which,
She's not wrong.
no, not wrong at all. It's literally just the KFC of Fearows.
To be fair, the legendary birds do look like Fearow, because they're all like they look all like Fearow, they look like Pidgeot, because they're also skinny birds.
Mm,
Um, and I yeah, I think if there was like a similar backstory of like, there's like the fan theory that the
mm,
legendary beasts
yeah,
from Gen 2 are like a Vaporeon, a Jolteon, and a Flareon that
yeah,
like Ho-Oh revived from the Tower Fire and they became legendaries.
yeah.
If there was a similar deal, but with like Fearows turning into the legendary birds, I could buy that. Um Sam has said the real question is which bird is the tastiest.
Uh, to which my immediate thought is Moltres, due to the spice that it obviously has.
Yeah, it comes char grilled already,
Yeah,
so.
it does, yeah.
But then like Farfetch'd comes with its own side.
Yeah, so, well, canonically, apparently Farfetch'd
Yeah.
is so tasty that it's basically extinct now. Um,
Mm.
I mean, that'd be a very what's the word? It'd be a very depressing Pokemon if there was like a battery chicken Pokemon.
Is that not like Torchic? Kind of.
Yeah, but like Torchic, but in a cage.
In a cage. If they made like more grown up episodes and like someone's battery farming Torchics to like because they're based on like the chickens that people get given and then like discard because the idea was that you like they were like, what if we design a starter Pokemon that you're not going to want to keep to the end? And then everyone did
Is
keep
that true?
Blaziken because it's fucking sick. Yeah,
I
we'll
never
talk
knew
about
that.
it in the Torchic episode. But yeah, that's what they decided to design Torchic after these like short-lived kind of like chicken toys that are popular in a bit of the world I'm not very familiar with. And I thought that was really interesting. Um, and I feel like, yeah, if there was like a mature kind of like series of Pokemon targeting at the adults with the darker theories,
Mm,
like that could be a cool episode where they find a bunch of like battery Torchics like breeding to get the like chicks to go out to the starter Pokemon farms, like a puppy mill for
yeah,
Torchics. That'd be a fun episode to see, like,
yeah.
the good guys burst in and take it down.
Just some
Like,
really sore
yeah.
dittos at the back.
Mm, I feel like I feel like as much as I talk about this, right, things that we could do with a like a more grown-up approach to Pokemon stories. I very much do not want Pokemon to have a gritty adult reboot because like every single show that has had a gritty reboot has sucked.
Mm,
I don't like most of them.
mm,
And I definitely don't want them to do it to Pokemon.
yeah.
Um, hmm.
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of Dragon Ball Z. I like if we hadn't done a podcast about Pokemon, and you were like, oh, should we do a podcast about Dragon Ball Z? I feel like I could equally hold my own in that realm.
Mm.
And the gritty reboot Dragon Ball Evolution was meant to be a series, and it was only one film. And there's a reason why that was, because it was dreadful.
Uh, well, let's hope they never do it to Pokemon.
Like, I don't know, did you ever watch Dragon Ball Evolution?
I was not that much into Dragon Ball enough to justify sticking with it long. I watched an episode here or there, but like I didn't get it in the same way.
I see. Well, during the pandemic, I decided to watch the entire. I bought on DVD. It's called Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is like the abridged version of like all the episodes, because it's so hard to watch all the episodes, because it'll be like, oh, I'm gonna batter you, and then they'll just talk about, I'm gonna batter you for the entire episode, and then at the end it'll be, on the next episode, will Goku
Oh
batter?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so they've cut all that out. But yeah, like I'm a big fan, and when they came out with the live action, I remember it came out when I was maybe like 18, 19, so I was probably just at the right age for it.
Yeah, you would have been the target
Yeah,
audience.
and I was watching it going, what's Justin Chatwin doing? Fucking jumping up and down off poles and throwing air. What is this? It was so yeah. I feel like if they were to do a live, like, I feel like if they went gritty, they'd likely go gritty live action, and like Dragon Ball Z, it didn't work. Death Note, it didn't work. It's like
No.
it just doesn't seem to translate.
Did you know there is this month a Death Note musical coming to London?
Oh wow!
But for like 3 days. And I'm like, that's gonna be the worst fucking thing in the world. Because I cannot imagine like anything less suited to being a musical. I think it's like next weekend. And a friend of mine sent me it, and I was like, I kind of want to go out of morbid curiosity, but also like the only available tickets when I'm free are like 40 quid.
Mm,
And I don't want to pay 40 quid for something I assume is gonna suck.
yeah,
Like if I could get like some like last minute cheapy ticket deal, obstructed view type thing, I would probably go just to see what it's like.
yeah.
But like I cannot imagine it being good.
I'm hoping that there's an
If it had a longer
entire
run, I
yeah.
would love to go after some reviews had come out.
Well, I'm down for that,
No?
and I genuinely hope that that I will get a chip and eat it is its own song.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, the problem that I feel like a lot of these, that like particularly Death Note, that Death Note has, is that that like, sorry if this is spoilers, by the way. If this is spoilers, feel free to mute it for the next
Spoilers here,
five
it's Chip.
seconds, right? That L dies midway through. Right, you can now unmute. And because of that, I feel like normally you'd want like L throughout the whole thing. But like part of the arc is that he couldn't do it on his own,
Yeah.
and that I feel for any live action like remake, particularly because like a live action thing is only going to be like a couple of hours, really disjoints the whole story.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think any time they try to condense, I think this is the issue with film, and because of the point, uh stage musicals, which are usually longer than films. You're like 3 hours
Mm.
or so. You get like 2 hours and like a half-hour interview. So, well, it can be a bit longer than a film. I think like when it has to be a story that fits in that time. And if you've got like, anime seasons that go on for hundreds of episodes, and then you try and condense it into like 90 minutes, you are begging for it to fail. Like, if the story fit in that time frame, that's how long it would have been in the first place. Not and you've got to pick your like snippet to fit into the short time
Mm.
really carefully if you want to, if otherwise you're just going to alienate everyone who might want that show.
Mm.
And it's yeah, not going to work.
So this here is a little snippet behind the scenes for anyone watching. Before we went live, I was like, we've not done one of these in a while. I reckon we might go wildly off track. And I think to talk about Death Note and Dragon Ball Z is the most off track we've ever gone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we did also say there's only so much you can say about Spearow, and I do think we've said most of it already.
Well, should we have a look at the Pokédex entries then?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. So there he is, the little main man, and whenever I look at these, I feel like I did a good job this month. Sometimes I look at it and I go, I did not do a good job of my drawing. Okay, Pokédex entries. Okay, so we've got eats bugs in grassy areas. It has to flap its short wings at high speed to stay airborne. Which is given.
Is that not like every bird? Like, like, right?
Well, I mean, it is. I feel like Spearow is a tiny bit of an afterthought. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they were like, right, well, we've got Pidgey, and someone was like, well, should we just stick another bird in there just in case?
I think Pidgey needed a foil. Like, I think if Ash was going to have a Pidgeotto on his team, then it couldn't be a bunch of Pidgeotos and a Pidgeot, like, that Pikachu shocked the shit out of.
Mm.
Like, there needed to be an alternate one in order for, like, it not to, like, traumatize children that Ash had one after everything that happened,
But you've got to consider that Red and Blue came out so the anime, I'm fairly certain, comes out like midway through the production of Gold and Silver, which is one of the reasons why like Ho-Oh's in the first episode.
Yeah.
So Spearow and Fearow actually predate the anime, so I feel like it would have been less to do with Ash and more to do with we just need a few more like early game Pokemon at this point.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess like the idea of having some variety makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are probably a handful that feel kind of like filler Pokemon,
Mm.
but I also don't mind that because it's like not every animal is fucking interesting. So
Mm.
there's got to be some duds, I think.
Yeah, very true. And we've got 151 of these until we reach the end of Series 9. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we will meet some duds. But yeah, like I imagine that they went, okay, we've got a pigeon, we've got a rat. They were like, we got this
Yeah.
pangolin. Can we introduce this pangolin? No, maybe a bit weird. So they're like, should we just have another bird? And this entry feels like at this point here they've not really established it. It's like
Yeah, there's nothing really unique about it.
yeah.
I think if I read just this entry alone, I I would be, yeah, first instinct, that's all birds. Like, what's new about it? Like, in the context of yellow and stadium entries, though,
Mm.
it it focuses on the shortness of its wings. It focuses on like how it stays low to the ground, and it focuses on how territorial it is.
Yeah.
So yellow says inept at flying high, however it can fly around very fast to protect its territory. I think that tells me a lot more about like what Spearow is like.
Yeah.
Like it can't go very high, but it's very territorial. That feels like Spearow. And then Stadium, its wings are short, so it can't go a long distance. But if it's not eaten, it does move around a lot. Right. That tells me more about what Spearow is like. Like it's not built for distance, it's not built for height, but it is built for speed. And I feel like the the three of those together do give me an idea of what Spearow is like, but I feel like the red and blue one uh is the weakest of the three.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like and here's another bird. But I feel like the protects its territory that must have been lifted from the anime.
Yeah.
Mm.
I feel like the Gold Professor and Stadium 2, because they have the same territory,
Yeah.
has gone a step further than just saying Spearow has short wings to like almost like body shaming Fearow.
Stubby.
Because it's like it flaps its short wings to flush out insects from tall grass, then plucks them out with its stubby beak. Like, all right, fuck you. Do you have a better beak than Spearow? Leave it alone. Like we know its wings are short,
Yeah.
but then I feel like stubby is just a rude way of that's a rude choice of adjective. Is all I'm saying.
Yes. Well, there we go. Maybe we've discovered something a little bit about Gold Professor right there.
Gold Professor, a bit of a dick.
I was going to say, yeah, body
I
shamer.
reckon Gold Professor got pecked and was like mad about it.
And they were like,
Or Gold Professor was doing its Spearow research and the Spearow got a bit nippy.
yeah. And they were like, what's that mark on your hand? Oh, it's nothing. Does that not hurt? It looks like it hurt. No, it comes from a stubby beak. Why would a stubby beak hurt anyone?
Stupid stubby little fucking. So Silver, very protective of his territory, flaps its short wings busily to dart around at high speed. Okay, that's like that and Crystal. To protect its territory, it flies around ceaselessly, making high-pitched cries. I feel like they're pretty standard.
Yeah.
I think the high-pitched cry is new, but also matches what we know about Spearow from the show.
Yeah. I never considered Spearow as having a stubby beak. Not a stubby beak, sorry, like short wings. Like, that's not something that I particularly thought was memorable about it.
Yeah, I mean, it does have a smaller beak. But like, I guess Pidgey also has like a pretty small beak. It's got a normal sized beak for its size.
Yeah.
Unless you are specifically comparing it to Fearow, which obviously has a really long fucking beak.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're comparing it to Fearow. But yeah, like at the minute, like I would just be like, okay, Spearow Pidgey, and Pidgey's like the slightly, less henpecked of the two. But this is making like. No wonder he's got a chip on its shoulder, given that the professors are being so shitty about it.
Yeah. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald go on about how loud it is. Spearow has a very loud cry that can be heard over half a mile away.
Oh, dick's ringing.
Its high-keening cry is heard echoing all around. It's a sign they are warning each other of danger.
Yeah.
I think that I think that is another one that's pretty good at leaning into the territorial element of it.
Mm.
I think that's pretty cool. Fire Red, it busily flits around here and there. It's like someone has just seen it out the window and been like, yeah, I'll do.
Yeah.
So fucking lazy.
There we go, something new that we've discovered about Fire Red Professor.
I'm not getting near that stubby beak, so I'll just, it's flitting around here and there. Yeah. That's
It sounds like it was written by my gran. It's just flitting about. You don't want to write anything? No, here and there. Don't want to write anything? No, countdowns on.
But it does go on to say, even if it is frail, it could be a tough foe that uses Mirror Move, which is, I don't want to say Spearow's signature move, but like, that is like one of the moves that Spearow learns is actually good by leveling up, because a lot of the moves that you might want to use with Spearow, you've got to teach it.
Yeah.
Back to eat bugs in grassy areas, flapping its short wings to stay airborne.
Mirror move used to be like one of my favourite moves back in the day. I used to think it was like a sick, particularly if it was like a Pokemon that had sturdy. So like if it hit me with whatever, I could mirror move it back. Am I right in thinking Spearow and Fearow's signature move is Drill Peck?
I think Fearow's is, yeah.
Because that's what I was going to say. Can Spearow learn Drill Peck? Because it is odd that it's not been mentioned at this point.
It doesn't by leveling up.
It doesn't.
Not by leveling up. I think you might be able to teach it. Let me have a look. Learn set. But yeah, by leveling up, it has Peck, Growl, Leer, Fury Attack, Mirror Move. Oh, Drill Peck at 29, level 29. So at that point, it's already evolved. Usually, if you keep it below, but then after Drill Peck, it learns Agility and nothing else. Everything else you have to teach it. It's got a decent move pool, but mostly normal type moves. But then again, Generation 1, we talked about this earlier with how janky the typing is. Generation 1, Razor Wind, Whirlwind were both normal type moves. And they probably should have been flying type moves, same as Gust. But yeah, you have to teach it those. And then it's really good flying type moves that again you have to teach it would be Sky Attack and Fly. But yeah.
Well, should we move on to? I'll tell you something that is worth mentioning before we move on. So we've already established that Generation 3 Professor might be a furry. Has a loud cry that can be heard over half a mile away. If its high, keening cry is heard echoing all around, it's a sign that they are warning each other of danger. If Generation 3 Professor is a furry, maybe they are the danger. Like Heisenberg.
The Spearow are warning each other that fucking meddling professor is coming back.
Yeah,
and everyone to get on guard.
He's finished ripping up metapods, and gawping at Pidgeots, and now he's looking at us with our stubby little beaks in inverted commas.
I mean, Diamond, Pearl, or Generation 4 in general doesn't get any better. It's going back to flaps its wings busily, uses its beak to search in grass for prey, here, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, using its beak, it searches in grass for prey. Heart Gold, it flaps its short wings to flush out insects from tall grass, then plucks them with its stubby beak. Is it using its beak, or is it using its wings to flush out the insects? Because I feel like this is conflicting information.
Well, either way, stubbiness is not conflicted.
Stubbiness. Yeah, we're all in agreement it's got a stubby beak. Soul Silver goes to very protective of its territory, flaps its short wings busily to dart around at high speed. Again, that's not new information. Black, White, and black and white too. Flaps its small wings busily to fly, using its beak searches in grass for small prey. Again, not new information. I feel like Spearow is being a bit sold short.
Mm.
Like, I'm not learning new things from these Pokedex entries.
Yeah.
Like, not in the same way that some of them, like the Raticate Pokedex entries, I think genuinely um uh are like they build on what I understand about Raticate, and
Yeah.
this just doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is as well, like, I feel like once you move beyond, like, the gold and silver, like, uh, the Johto portion of the anime, I feel like Spearow does increasingly get kind of left behind, because they swap out that kind of antagonist for, other Pokemon.
Yeah.
Particularly like the group. I feel like the groups, Team Aqua, Team Magma, end up filling that role much more so than Pokemon do.
Yeah.
So,
Um
so maybe it's partly that as well.
yeah, that's possible. So Gen 6 doesn't give anything new, but Gen 7 I quite like. So Sun, its short wings make it inept at flying. It moves about hurriedly and pecks at bug-type Pokemon in the tall grass. That's not any new information, but I think it's communicated a bit better.
Yeah.
I really like the one for Moon. Farmers whose fields are troubled by bug Pokemon appreciate Spearow for its vigorous appetite and look after it. I
Ah.
think that's cute. That's finally telling me something new about Spearow. That is contextualizing Spearow. It's giving it like a space to be in the Pokemon world, um, and showing its relationship with other Pokemon and people. I like that. This is my favorite one so far.
Yeah.
Um,
And you could potentially like maybe give a farmer trainer a couple of Spearow,
yeah.
in order maybe like that, and maybe like a Cacnea.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I also quite like Ultra Sun. Its reckless nature leads it to stand up to others, even large Pokemon, if it has to protect its territory. Which again, I think that's new information.
Yeah.
Like we know about Spearow's aggression because we've seen it in the show,
Yeah.
but I think this is offering a bit more information about that. It's like it's not just like, oh, it's a little angry and territorial and hungry, but this is like its anger leads to behavior that is potentially, not good for it.
Mm.
um but I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I feel
I think
like.
Gen 7 finally gave Spearow some fucking time
Mm.
instead of these lazy ass professors. They're just like, oh, it's flying around and it's loud.
And Stubby.
Stubby.
Do you think that the farmers were like, I feel like you are being real mean to Spearow. We like Spearow.
Real mean to Spearow.
What do we want? Better Spearow entries. When do we want it? Well, as soon as the harvest is finished and we might have a bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the rest sort of don't tell us anything new.
Yeah.
They had a couple of good ones in there.
Yeah. Well, should we have a look at the Smogon next?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do Smogon. And I discovered something about Smogon that I feel like we should have a look at. Because so there it is there with a little animation, which I would say doesn't look particularly small winged or stubby in comparison to. And you can see here that it's got all the details, like the speed's pretty decent, but it is ultimately all red and in the little cup. And what I discovered is we get another, if we scroll down, we get another little view on it. This is according to the competitive Pokemon team. Like, someone who is arguably as much of a Pokemon professor as those Pokemon professors. But but I feel like they are a bit mean, really. Spearow offers little to nothing to distinguish itself from the myriad of flying Pokemon in the tier, and struggle to find a place on any serious team as a result.
Yeah. I think that is also potentially an element of being in Gen 1, because the early Pokemon did not have to compete with 1,000 other Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like when they're coming up with new Pokemon now, and they're like, all right, we're gonna put a flying type on this route. They have many flying types to pick from already.
Yeah.
They can say, oh yeah, we just need something really simple, we'll chuck a Spearow in. You don't need another Spearow
Yeah.
at the time. They can be like, we need an angry one to be like the opposite of Pidgey. And then they come up with Spearow.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we already have Pidgey and Spearow. So if we come up with a new flying type, it needs to have its own gimmick. It can't just be another Pokemon that's exactly the same.
Yeah.
We can already use those. So I think there are going to be a lot of Pokemon that we come across that are simple compared to their counterparts from other regions in other generations. And it's like I was saying before about like Rookidee and Fletchling. They wanted a new flying type to go in that bit.
Yeah.
And, Fletchling, interesting because it's also a fire type. That's unusual for such an early game Pokemon. Yeah. Rookidee, that has been thought of like what makes it unique to this region.
Yeah.
And I think they didn't have to put so much thought into it here because it didn't have the competition.
Yeah.
So I feel like as we get later into the games, we do get more interesting Pokemon with more interesting gimmicks.
Yeah.
But at this point, Pokemon didn't need gimmicks to be different because this was your only choice. This was your only option.
Yeah.
Like, Fearow was just angry and slightly different, and that was enough to distinguish it from Pidgey. That was enough to give it its own characterization because it wasn't being compared to as many things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're going to see a fair bit of that over the next few months.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I think is if they introduced Spearow later on down the line, it wouldn't have been normal flying type. I think they would have made it a dark flying.
Yeah. I guess like Murkrow.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
I like Murkrow.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm a fan of a lot of the dark types. I think I don't feel like we've chatted about this on the podcast before, but I'm pretty sure that in Japan it's not called dark type; it's called like evil type. So the idea of it being like flying evil would be like it being the grumpy version of a Pidgey. I feel would make sense as well, and it's one of the reasons why I don't know why they've not decided to give Fearow an extra evolution that's flying dark type. That that's like
they very much might like introduce in a future game like an alternate form Fearow or an additional evolution the way that they've done with Meowth.
Yeah.
I think it would be a way to give Spearow and Fearow a bit more like use.
Yeah.
Get people a bit more interested in them. I don't know what like the market is like for that because again, apart from being very catalytic in the beginning of the series, I didn't see too many of like these Pokemon through the show, so it was kind of fine.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are using them enough that they're going to go back and focus on Spearow and Fearow.
Yeah.
But I also think that with some of the regional variants, they have sort of gone with less popular Pokemon for the sake of keeping them relevant.
Yeah.
Like when they made the alternate forms of Grimer and Muck, I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
I thought like, oh yeah, look at like how pollution is different from region to region. You've got like the normal ones that are just sludge, and you've got these ones that look more like an oil spill when it catches the light.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was really interesting, and I could see, I could see them doing a similar thing with Fearow in a different game.
Yeah. Like I'd make it look like a hawk, like a full on like bird of prey that's like given
Yeah.
up on the territorial thing and just will like attack anything that's in the territory. But yeah. So should we draw Spearow to a close and give our
Yeah,
own
we need to give it
rating?
our own ratings, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
What would you give Spearow?
I feel like I'm being a bit mean, but I feel like we've not particularly learned very much from the lore standpoint. I feel like gaming Game Freak haven't done enough kind of like with the mechanics of it for me to push it beyond a 5.
Yeah, I was gonna go with like a 4 because like aside from it's the plot points that it triggered in the show, Spearow could be quite forgettable just in the games.